think everything we just said.
No, I got results back. I sent the pictures to the person in charge was doing this work.
Well, what do you call me again next time? And I don't charge too much. Well, that's good. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, that's a can. Well, that looks like about 70. Yeah, I don't know. All four is well, Nick knows what he's doing. See, in actuality, it's not good writing. And so, with the time, it would be slower and all that stuff.
All right, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming out this morning. My name is Caitlin Shanahan. I'm Manager of Communication and Development for Life After 50. For those of you who have never been to one of our locations or don't know who we are, I'd invite you to please take a look at the handout on the tables here and feel free to ask us some questions after because we are very honored to invite you to our home and have you here today to hear from our candidates. Life After 50 is honored to be able to provide this opportunity to not only our members but area residents of Windsor Tecumseh to hear from your candidates and get your questions answered. Before I turn it over to our moderator, I'll just give you a couple housekeeping notes. Please feel free to get up and grab some fresh refreshments over here. We've got coffee, water, some cookies. The washrooms are located just in this corner here. And I hope there's enough room in the back aisle there to feel free to cross back and forth between. And if you have any other questions, just feel free to tap me on the shoulder and grab me or someone wearing a Life After 50 shirt. So with that, I'll turn it over to our moderator, Lynn Adams, from our Board of Directors, and he will be able to introduce our candidates with us today. Thanks again for coming.
Morning, everyone. Morning. The rules have been distributed to each of the candidates. They understand the rules, and very briefly, I'll go through them with you. The moderator will select at random individual candidates. No personal or derogatory remarks from any of the candidates will be allowed. They should base their answers on why they should be elected or their particular party platform. If time permits, we'll ask questions. We will recognize questions from the audience. All candidates will be allotted an opportunity to finalize and to do an introduction. Our official timer, Bruce Draper, will hold up an orange card to acknowledge that they have 30% of their time or 25% of their time left, and a red card that will signify that their time is done.
These are the only two I have.
Yep, that's it. Yellow and red.
You said orange, that's what made me question.
Stand up. You should get a red orange shirt.
I'm colorblind here, right?
Each of the candidates were given 3 questions prior to the beginning of today. After their introductions, we will ask, or I will ask, the 3 candidates at random to respond to the questions within a minute and a half or 2 minutes, depending. I'd like to thank everyone for being here, and hopefully we will be done by 12:30 with the finalizations and everything, and everybody will have an opportunity to ask the candidates a question. So without further ado, I will ask each of the candidates to stand when I read their names. Jason Dupuis, is it Dupuis?
Dupuis.
Dupuis, from the Ontario Liberal Party. Jason. Adam Wright from the Green Party of Ontario. Percy Hatfield, Ontario NDP. And Brandon Wright from the PC Party of Ontario. Unfortunately, Timothy Marshall from the Libertarian Party was not able to attend today. So I have already chosen the numbers out of the hat. Number 2 is, I'm going to get my notes here again. Number 2 is Brandon Wright. He will be the first one to do his introduction. Brandon?
Right. Well, hi everyone. My name is Brandon Wright, and I'm the Ontario PC candidate for the riding of Windsor Tecumseh. It's a privilege to be able to speak to all of you today. On the campaign trail, most of my fruitful discussions have been at the doorsteps of seniors, so I'm very excited to be here to get a chance to address many more of you at one time. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, I have a background in political science and communications from the University of Windsor and a Bachelor of Education from the University of Western Ontario. Right now I work part-time as a private guitar teacher, tutor, and special needs worker. I became involved with the PC party and decided to run because I have serious issues with what's going on right now in today's political climate. As a young person, I'm deeply concerned about the lack of jobs in this region, the $288 billion debt that my generation will get to inherit and have to deal with for the rest of our lives. And the numerous liberal scandals going on, ranging from the $1.1 billion gas plant scandal, the Orange Air Ambulance Service, and the brand new Mars office building scandal that's just taken place as the selection got started. The last decade of Liberal rule has left Ontario in a difficult situation. Kathleen Wynne promised us a fresh break from the past decade of Dalton McGuinty government. But their party continues down an unsustainable path, and it remains scandal-ridden. It's like the Who said, and don't get fooled and won't get fooled again. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. And the NDP have proven to be little better. They've voted with the Liberals 97% of the time in the last 3 years. Every confidence motion since 2011, every budget for the past 3 years, and 80% of all of the bills in the legislature. Last month, the NDP put forth many of their own ideas into the current budget and then opted not to support their own ideas. I want to fight for this community in Queen's Park. When the PCs form the next government, we need someone local to stand up for issues that matter to Windsor, and not merely as a member of the opposition. We need an accountable government, one that we can afford, and one that will put us in a position to start attracting jobs to this region again. As you've probably all heard by now, the PC platform is based on the Million Jobs Plan. We want to add 1 million new jobs to the province of Ontario. And you've probably heard that these numbers are inflated or false. Here's the thing. Many economists, including Philip Cross, who is the chief economic analyst at Statistics Canada, consider it too modest of an increase. Right now, we have 6.9 million jobs in Ontario. We want to grow that number to 7.9 million, or about a 14.5% increase over 8 years. That works out to about 1.8% per year. Now, if 1.8% is too high of an increase, then Ontario has accepted low levels of growth as the norm. We think that needs to change. In the 1990s, we had over 1 million jobs added to the economy. That represented a 20% growth in the economy. We can do this again. With our policies of a lower corporate tax, reduced red tape on businesses, and lower energy costs for everyone, we can attract new growth to this region and across all of Ontario. We need to get Ontarians working again. Thank you very much for your time, everyone.
Thank you. Our next one will be Adam Wright from the Green Party of Ontario. Adam?
Hello everyone, thanks for having me here today. Bonjour tout le monde, merci d'être venu aujourd'hui. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, my name is Adam Wright. I'm 28 years old. I'm an environmental studies student at the University of Windsor. I got interested in politics, especially last year when I ran as a candidate for the Green Party in the by-elections in 2013. Right now I work at the university part-time, but I also work at the downtown Windsor Farmers Market as a site manager downtown. I've seen a lot of local issues come to the discussion when I've been there, and I've had the opportunity to connect with the community on a lot of issues at the Windsor Farmers Market. My family and friends live in this community, so it would be a great pleasure and a great responsibility for me to be able to stand up for this community and for them, and as well as you, if you give me the opportunity to do so. So running for the Green Party is a little bit different than the mainstream parties. First of all, I have to tell people, yes, we do stand up for the environment. We do want to protect the environment, and no party has as strong stances on protecting the environment as the Green Party of Ontario. But second of all, right now what we're saying is we want to bring honesty, integrity, and good public policy to provincial politics. We've seen the other mainstream parties. What people are telling me is that they're disappointed, they're fed up with their options, and they want to see another alternative. So I'm here to tell you today, the Green Party is a viable alternative. We have 107 candidates running across the province. That means one in each riding. And we're here with a responsible platform that extends well beyond environmental issues. I'm going to start by talking about food and water. We have a commitment to make food and water a top priority in this campaign, especially in this area. I think that's very important. But across our province, we have 750,000 people employed in the food and agriculture sector, and that's a $40 billion contribution to our economy every year. So we want to preserve those jobs. We want to support the farmers who have fed our families for so long, for many generations, and we want to keep those people employed. And I know that we can do that based on what I've seen as a site manager at the farmers market downtown. I think it's important also to recognize the importance of environmental health. So if we want to reduce healthcare costs in the long run, if we all want to be healthier, first of all, we can do that by addressing lifestyle issues. We've got some beautiful naturalized spaces here on the waterfront and in our community in Windsor Tecumseh, and for me it would be a priority to preserve those, but also to make them, to connect people to those spaces so that we can make healthy choices in terms of recreation. Beyond that, lowering air pollution, keeping our water clean, these are all going to have an impact in the long run on saving money in our healthcare system. I want to tell you that you don't have to choose between jobs and the environment. Jobs in the 21st century will revolve around environmental issues, and we can combine both of those. So don't let anyone tell you you have to choose jobs or the environment. In terms of job creation, what we'd like to see in this community is more support for small businesses. So by lowering payroll taxes on small businesses, that way will allow employers to create more jobs. And in fact, during 2008, during the economic recession, we saw that small businesses were the only sector in the economy that were increasing numbers of workers. On the other hand, we also want to be proud of our manufacturing heritage. We should be proud of what we've created and the long history we have of that in our community. But let's look forward towards high-tech manufacturing as well. And when we talk about construction, engineering, and those sorts of issues as well, we need to focus on how we can adapt our homes for the 21st century. Hydro bills are through the roof. We want to lower the cost of hydro for you and for your family by funding retrofit programs and requiring that hydro companies provide affordable loans for home retrofits. So what's that going to do? It's going to create more jobs in construction, architecture, and innovation. So where are we going to find money in our budget? Everything in the Green Party platform is accounted for. Every dollar is accounted for. So that's maybe not something you've seen in the other platforms. What we're saying is right now we have the lowest royalty rates on resource extraction of any province in Canada. So that's a shame, in my opinion. We're giving away our natural wealth, we're giving away our future, and we think that these corporations and companies who are extracting these resources need to be held accountable and need to contribute back to public funds. Also, we're funding nuclear power plant projects in this province that have never come in on time or on budget in our history. So what we really want to look at is buying cheaper hydropower from neighboring regions and reinvesting that cost savings into local programs around here for developing clean energy. And I see my time is probably just about up, so I'll leave it at that, and hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about some more issues later. Thank you.
Our next candidate is Jason Dupuis. Yes, I apologize.
Although I don't speak much of it anymore. I'd just like to thank you guys for organizing this event, the Life After 50. This is a forum that it's great to have. This is the second time we've been in front of actual voters as opposed to in a studio or at the chamber, and it's great to have Adam here as well. He wasn't actually at our last two forums, and I think the Green Party has an important voice going forward. I'm the son of an auto worker and a nurse. In Windsor, if you live here, if you've lived here for a long time, you know at least one, probably far more. It's part of who I am. Nursing for my mother was a passion. It wasn't a job. She would give her time after hours and go and help with blood drives and things like that. But it always took me along to kind of understand what it was to participate in the community like that. And it's part of the passion of why I'm running for the Liberal Party. I will fight for a new hospital without delay. That's our number one priority locally, myself and Teresa. And moving forward, that's very important to us. I've unfortunately spent a lot of time in our hospitals lately. My father was ill a few years ago, and I spent a good portion of 2 months in the oncology ward. The inside of the rooms are beautiful. Transition of Betterness has done a great job with renovating the rooms and making them feel hospitable. But when you walk out into the hallway to kind of take a breather, you see things falling apart. And unfortunately in this community, I just don't think that's acceptable. It's not acceptable for our healthcare system in general, but it's not acceptable for the patients or their families because it's just not a comfortable environment. They deserve a higher quality of care, and a new hospital would provide that. We know the status quo is unacceptable in the healthcare system. We must transform our healthcare system for the future boomers. We have to make sure Ontarians get the right care at the right place at the right time. Home health care is very important to the Liberal Party, as long as increasing the number of long-term care beds in our community. That's why we're investing in home and community care. This way, the best quality can be delivered close to home. This allows patients to be in a comfortable environment, which reduces stress, mental and physical. I know when my dad was ill, when we were in hospice, it was it's the nurses and the workers that are there are very passionate about what they do, and it definitely lowered the stress on my father in his last few days. We've raised the bar for primary care providers. Now at 93% of Ontario has access to a primary care provider. We would like to increase that number by up to 100% during our mandate. We have added 20,000 nurses to our healthcare system since 2003 and are proposing to expand the scope of their scope of practice. We are adding jobs and long-term care beds at Schlegel Village. Over 250 long-term care beds will be created there. And just a couple of quick facts. We have 5,000 new doctors in Ontario. We have gone from worst to first in surgical wait times. Windsor alone has increased the amount of doctors in the city by more than 23%. And a new hospital would draw top talent to the area. State of the art is a draw. It's something we could get some of the top class oncologists in the city. Unfortunately, both my parents have passed away from cancer, so I truly appreciate getting the best talent in that sector. And the Liberals will invest $300 million over the next decade to shift the focus for seniors from going to hospital to care in their home. We've created in terms of energy, I know this is a concern for many of you, the Liberals created the Healthy Home Tax Credit. If seniors want to renovate their homes, they'll receive a tax credit for that. We're committed locally to expanding our angioplasty program at Windsor Regional. My father also had a heart attack. He wasn't in the best shape, I guess, but we've looked at improving that program at Windsor Regional, but also the eventual acute care facility. If we can open that and get a larger unit in there, it would be great for our community. Because I remember when my father had his first heart attack, I had to drive. I was in high school. I was driving up and down the 401 to London just to visit him, and it's not good for families. It's not good for a lot. So it would be great to have that. Great to have that here. Okay, and I'd just like to focus on the pension plan. Study after study shows that Canadians simply aren't saving enough for retirement, and currently there are over $20 billion in unused RRSPs. The Ontario Pension Plan is a deferred wages program, so it's whatever an employee puts in, they will receive back upon retirement. And I see that my time's up, so I was prepared for a little bit more. Thank you.
Thank you. Percy Hatfield.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for attending, and thank you to the organizers for putting this on. We don't always get a real live audience when we get together. We don't always have all of our candidates, so it's good to see the Greens here again. Let me just touch on something that Mr. Wright from the PC said earlier about the NDP supporting the Liberals 97% of the time. He didn't say whatever percentage it was that the PC supported the Liberals. So I guess the NDP supporting the Liberals 97% of the time could also be seen as not supporting the PCs 97% of the time. I'm not sure. But I mention that because when you have a minority government in Ontario, the people made the right choice. They didn't confer on anyone majority status. So when you have a minority status, you have to work together to get anything done. And you have to cooperate. You can't bury your head in the sand and say, no, 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 no. You have to work together on behalf of the people, and that is something that not all parties have done. A little bit about me. I guess I was elected as an MPP a year ago, practically in August. I said I'd go down, I would retain my integrity, I wouldn't make false promises, I would fight on behalf of my community, and I believe I've done that. I believe people know that I've stood up for our community on any number of issues, be it on the girder issues, pointing out how flawed the process was, on joining the community fight to save thoracic cancer surgery in our area. That was a real community effort. No one person should be taking credit for that. I've been criticized early on in this campaign because I was asked about the new hospital. And I said, I support the process. Teresa Perusa set up a process that the community had to come together, hospital community had to come together, and prove to the people that make decisions at the LHINs and at the ministry that we deserved a new hospital. Part of that process is that last Friday, a site selection committee was named to work with community members to determine a site for a new hospital. I was asked by Dawson Chen here from the Windsor Star to give my preference on a site. And I said, oh, the process is unfolding. The committee hasn't been named, they'll pick a site. And he said, well, Chris Holt and others in the community want it downtown, the mayor wants it at the airport. And I said, yeah, and the town of Tecumseh wants it, the town of Essex wants it. It's not my decision. The process is that was set up, the committee will decide, the community will decide, the community will provide input into that decision. And then I was asked, well, will your party commit $1 billion now for a new hospital? And I said, no, our party doesn't make $1 billion commitments during an election campaign. I mean, if you think about it, 107 ridings, if every NDP candidate made $1 billion promise, the first thing the media would be saying is, they're being foolish and reckless with your money. We don't make $1 billion promises in the middle of an election campaign. So I've been criticized for that. And I told you before, I'm not going to make a false promise. I believe in the process. The community believes in the process. The community is behind a new hospital. We will fight for a new hospital because we deserve a state-of-the-art medical facility for our community. But if you're too honest with people, yeah, you get criticized. Look, we were brought here to talk about our platform. So I'm going to run down some of the NDP platform until I run out of time and then pick it up later on. We know we need a new hospital at 7, 8, 9, 10 years away. So what do we do in the meantime? Well, the NDP feels if you want to cut the ER wait times, if you've been to the ER, you know how long it takes you to wait there to get anything done. So we want to get people through the system faster. So we want to hire across the province 250 emergency room nurse practitioners. That's only 2 in each ER, but at least you have 2 nurse practitioners who can get you the least, the people with the least of the problems in and out quicker and help get people up to beds. You have to have a system of, we're going to build 1,400 new long-term care beds. And that if you get approved for home care, once you get out of the hospital, once you're approved, we guarantee within 5 days, somebody will be by to provide home care in the room. So these are things that we can take in the short term before we get to that hospital stage. And if you provide home care in your home for a loved one, we believe in a tax credit of $1,275 a year for that, up to 3 people. Thank you another time.
Thank you. You've heard the introductions of each of the candidates. At this time, we'll go through the 3 questions that were asked of each of the candidates, and I will randomly select a candidate to respond to the question. Question number 1. Planning is now moving forward for a new mega hospital, which will become the single acute care hospital for this region. The doors to the new hospital should open in 7 to 10 years. How will your party ensure that Windsor receives a state-of-the-art facility which will meet the current and future needs of patients, staff, and our members of this community? First one to respond to that question will be Adam. You'll have 2 minutes.
Okay, well, we've heard a lot about the mega hospital recently, and there's definitely a lot of conflicting opinions on it, and maybe a bit of misconceptions as well. So first of all, I'd like to say that if this is an opportunity to bring provincial dollars to our community, then we definitely need to go after it. We definitely need to stand up for our community and say that yes, we're the community that needs this, and we're the community that deserves it. If this is going to be a good way to invest in our infrastructure and our public transportation and our jobs, and create jobs in both construction and in healthcare services, then yes, we need to fight for it. But I'm going to go on a limb, and I'm going to say first, we also need to ask, if we need this mega hospital, if we're going to spend billions of dollars, what would those billions of dollars do if they were reinvested in the facilities we already exist? Does a mega hospital come at the expense of our already communities, or the establishments that we already have in our communities? Is it going to come at the expense of neighborhood services that we want to support as well? These are questions that we need to ask, and definitely the public needs to be consulted in this process, and definitely the public needs to have a lot of input on this. Sure, if we're selecting a site, we need to listen to experts in urban planning. We need to listen to experts in engineering. We need to listen to experts in the medical field. But we are the experts in our own lives. We're the experts in what our desires are and our own health. And we need to be in control of that. So I think we should all be participating as much as we can. And we've already seen a survey, and I hope everybody's taken the time to fill that out on behalf of yourselves and ourselves in this community. So I'd just like to say that yes, we should fight for this project, but we should also keep in mind how that money could be spent on facilities and employees and jobs that we already have and already value in our communities.
Thank you. The next candidate to respond to the question is Jason.
Thank you. We absolutely need a new hospital facility in this area. There's no way there can be an investment into renovating these buildings. It's just not plausible. We need a massive acute care center that allows state-of-the-art technology to be brought in, more MRIs, a larger angioplasty program, and just a more comfortable environment. I know when you walk through these hospitals, they're aging, some of them over 60, 70, 80 years. When you go up to London Health Sciences, and that's not even a tremendously new building, it's not that recent, but it's a far more comfortable environment for patient care. Site selection is, they have a committee that will take care of that. I imagine the population density will be a major driving factor, and in speed of care, we have to situate the hospital where it will get patients to the hospital as quickly as possible. It'll be equipped with a helipad, so we'll have the medevac capability there as well. Personally, I will fight to bring that hospital to Windsor. I know how important healthcare is to this community. Along with Teresa, I will push our Liberal government to bring that hospital to Windsor because I think it's absolutely needed. And moving forward, I don't think we should have to wait for the books to be balanced, because that'll push the hospital to 2030, 2035, and I don't think we should wait in line behind other communities. So that's my position on the hospital. Thank you.
Thank you. The next candidate is Percy.
Well, I thought the Liberal policy was to balance the books in 17-18, and now we're hearing 35. So I'm a little shocked by that. But look, there's a process, and the way the process is set out is that you dribble so much little money down in stages as you complete the process for a new hospital. So far, part of the criteria was that the hospital community gets together and says, yes, we'll have one acute care, the other hospital will provide therapy and long-term care. So they do all this and they make all these changes, and it's moving along faster than anybody ever thought before. And we're getting ahead of the game, and that's good. The next stage is after the site selection committee makes a recommendation, it goes back up to the Lynn and the ministry people. If at that stage the ministry says, we will give you $30 million for the design of the hospital, that's when we kick into gear. That's when we can start planning. But there's no guarantee in this stage of the process that the ministry is going to approve everything as laid out. You have to convince them that you've done your consultation, everybody's on board, this is where it's going to be built, now we design it. It's $35 million to come up with a design. We would hope, once you have the design, you're going to get to build. Once you have your design and there's a list of other hospitals across the province that want to be built, people will make those decisions, say, yes, Windsor, Vaughan, whatever else. Vaughan's being promised one now. Mr. Hudak is on the record as saying the one in Niagara Falls that they promised during the by-election is probably going to be canceled after the provincial election. You don't always, because you make a promise, you don't always fulfill it. And what I've been saying is, I will support the community. I will fight for a new hospital. But I know there's a process that has to be followed. And you can't jump that process. You have to meet the criteria to get to the next stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Brandon?
Well, I know Percy just mentioned Tim Hudak. Tim Hudak so far is the only leader who's come out fully in support of this. He was in Windsor last year and said, I pledge my support for a new mega hospital in Windsor. This is something that the region sorely needs. I have a mother who's a nurse, and I have a fairly decent understanding of what's going on right now. The former Hotel du Grace Hospital right now has rooms that have 2 or 4 beds in them. And this simply isn't acceptable going into the future. We're going to have new superbugs, new infections come through. You need to have a hospital that has single care rooms for one person. The other thing is, I think it was Jason who touched on this, but many specialized doctors will not come to the region. They'll opt to go to London, they'll opt to go to Michigan to practice when they have the specialized care that we desperately need in the region. So it is something that I plan to fight for. It is something that is needed, as the initial study has already shown, and like Percy said, the process is underway. We've never seen a community effort like this before to bring stakeholders together. We've already merged hospital boards, so things are moving forward. All the indicators show that this is going to happen, and I plan to work with stakeholders like David McHugh to ensure that this breaks ground as desired in this community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next question that was distributed to each of the candidates is more about healthcare. From aging at home initiatives to access to doctors and specialists to reduce waiting times for tests, services, and long-term care beds, the availability of healthcare service impacts everyone. A 2-hour ambulance ride to London is not the answer. How will your party ensure that Windsor continues to have adequate and timely healthcare services right in our own community? First candidate to respond to that question will be Jason.
Great question, and it goes back to the new acute care facility. We need to create an environment, and especially a facility that can accommodate quick travel, medevac services that can get people the care they need at the right place at the right time. Getting out into the community, I think we need to increase the number of nurse practitioners, obviously increasing the scope of practice for nurses, and get people the care they need in a timely fashion. It's very important for our community to remain active, and I think nurse practitioners and dietitians especially will be important going forward with that. I think a healthier lifestyle dietitians getting into the community and funding that is very important for our local healthcare. But as far as the acute care facility and the hospitals go, I think providing quick service with a medevac capable hospital is crucial going forward, because I think we see a lot of that 2-hour drive to London or 2-hour ambulance ride just isn't possible. So we need to situate the hospital in a good site, but also with the facility that we want to build, it will have the capabilities of accessing medevac services. Thank you.
Thank you. The next candidate will be Adam.
So when we're talking about healthcare, the Green Party takes a broad approach to health and well-being, certainly emphasizing healthy lifestyle opportunities and healthy communities in a healthy environment, and definitely an emphasis on nutrition and preventing illness. So when we're talking about accessing healthcare, first of all, I'd like to address the issue of public transportation. How are people going to get there? If you've had your driver's license revoked for various reasons, or you don't have a car, you can't afford a car, how are you going to get to these facilities? Whether it's just to visit family members who are there, or whether it's to get there for yourself. So I think that's going to be an important issue that I'm going to raise, and I'm going to hope that other parties are talking about that. If we're talking about a mega hospital and we're talking about the location, it's going to be very important that people can access it. So whether it's having pedestrian-friendly site or cycling-friendly site, we need to consider that, and I do want to bring that up because maybe the other parties won't talk about that. So definitely we also want to increase access to community-based attendance services. Home services, definitely. We've seen an improvement in recovery time and the benefit, there's a lot of benefit for being cared for in your own home environment where you're comfortable, and in the long run that helps recovery time. So certainly if we do have a mega hospital here, we need to consider how people are going to get there. And I would definitely encourage us to look at bringing a facility, state-of-the-art facility to this region.
Thank you. The next candidate to respond to the question will be Percy.
Well, thank you. We've seen in the past where some parties think that Ontario begins and ends in London. And we've seen it when they try to take away our thoracic cancer surgery and move it to London, where we'd have to travel up there to get that done. And the community revolted and stood up and said, no, that's just not good enough for us. So we need better facilities. We need a new hospital. But until that gets here, we have to do some other things. New Democrats say, for example, we want to build 50 new 24-hour family health care clinics. And that isn't just a drop-in clinic to see a local hospital. These are staffed by specialists and 24 hours a day. It means you can go to the clinic instead of going to the emergency room, and you can be treated, and you can see a specialist, and you can make appointments. We just think it makes more sense rather than rely on emergency room care. We also believe that nurses should be allowed to prescribe medications and order diagnostic testing. You shouldn't have to see a doctor if you have a pre-existing condition and can prove it, and you've got a nurse who's allowed to look after that. Ontario, unfortunately, under the Liberals, has the lowest nurse-to-population ratio in the country. We think we should attract new doctors to underserviced areas by forgiving $25,000 of their student debt for every year that they serve in an underserviced area. You know, I think the doctors come up out of medical school with about $160,000 in debt. If you can attract them to underserviced areas, you can get rid of that debt and make it more affordable. I mean, doctors only, first-year medical residents, I believe, only get about $50,000 a year, so it's about half of their salary, $14,000 clear of paying for their student debt. So we got to do more about that. I'm out of time. Thank you.
Thank you. The last candidate is Brandon.
Well, the PC plan that we have for healthcare is bold. Healthcare, as I'm sure all of you know, is it's the province's largest expenditure, and I believe it's the most important service that we provide as a community. It's also an important part of our Canadian identity. You know, it's something that we as Canadians come together and believe that we should take care of people in their greatest time of need. Ontario has done a number of things right in this regard. We have world-class healthcare professionals right now. Our wait times are getting better. But we can always do better. Our bureaucracy is too rigid and too centrally planned. The PCs want to promote a new patient-centered approach with increased local decision-making. We're also committed to growing our health budget to meet the population's demands. This is one area of our budget that will continue to grow. We have an aging population, especially as Windsor tries to attract itself as a retirement community for Ontario and the rest of Canada because of things like our great climate. So the mega hospital will be a part of that plan. We're also going to put a new focus on chronic care. We're going to expand home and long-term care availability, give patients more choice in home care services, focus decisions on evidence to improve quality, and like I believe it was the NDP said, we want to expand the scope of practice for people like nurses, pharmacists, and others. We need to allow our healthcare providers to make more decisions and have a greater say. Like you say, you can't go to a doctor for everything. Doctors are swamped enough as it is. There are a number of decisions that other healthcare providers can make perfectly safely. We want to increase choice and competition in the healthcare system. This will help to improve wait times and help to improve people's access. Thank you very much. See, I'm almost out of time.
Thank you. The last question for the candidates. Get my pieces of paper. Question number 3. Windsor is a designated age-friendly city by the World Health Organization with a community goal of becoming this country's premier retirement community. How will your party help our community overcome obstacles and barriers that aging residents now experience? How will your party help change current practices to accommodate and celebrate an aging population? The first candidate to have an opportunity to respond will be Jason.
It's a great question. I think the first concern we have is accessibility. It's building cities, municipalities, towns with more accessible buildings, especially with libraries and community centers that seniors use. Obviously wheelchair friendly, but more flat, ground level, and more elevators in them if they're going to be multiple stories. Ontario is also, under the Liberal government, has expanded. Premier Wynne has introduced Ontario's action plan for seniors. It increased access to health services, increased support for seniors on fixed income. She's also helped communities become more age-friendly. For example, even I think it's the Tecumseh Golden Age Center here, but we've created elderly person centers that provide social and recreational programs to promote wellness for seniors. We have increased efforts to keep seniors active, healthy, and engaged in their communities by providing over 270 of these across Ontario. We've provided funding for aging at home strategy, over $1 billion to help seniors lead healthy and independent lives while avoiding unnecessary trips to the hospital. We've also provided over $500 million in housing support for seniors and other groups so that they can stay at home a little bit longer. Those are things that the Liberals are passionate about, and moving forward, I think we have to continue with those programs. So, thank you.
Next one is Adam.
On a personal note, my grandparents aren't around today any longer, unfortunately. But I'm thankful for the seniors and elders in my community who I've connected with at the community garden at the University of Windsor, who have, in a sense, adopted me and provided for that role in my life. And basically have taught me a lot more than just gardening techniques, and onto a lot of things that I've learned, valuable lessons for my life. So I appreciate the presence and role that seniors have in this community on a personal level. On a platform level, I would want to say that the Green Party is committed to building a system of community and continuing care for Ontarians. So what does that mean? That means home services, that means supported housing, assisted housing, transitional and respite care, as well as long-term care, where and when needed. And we know the value of having that in people's homes. So we want to develop patient-centered care. Obviously, healthcare is a big issue for seniors in this community. And I guess the third point would be talking about preventative care, which I've mentioned already a little bit. But I think the value that we can add to this discussion as a Green Party candidate is to put an emphasis on creating spaces that are healthy, adopting proper nutrition. Food is the best medicine, we've heard that before. If we can bring in organic food from our farmers in the county and feeding that to hospitalized patients as well as seniors, that's going to be a priority for me in this discussion. I also think we all agree that we need to expand the scope of RNs in our communities, start treating them as valued members of our family lives as well as our public health lives. And on a final note, I just want to bring up something while we're talking about this. I wanted to mention public transportation. I already addressed that, I think. The importance of public transportation in the sense that can't we wait 30 seconds so that the seniors on the bus can sit down before moving on? I've seen them fall over, and that's just not something I ever want to see again. Thanks for your time.
Percy.
Thanks, Ian. Well, you know more than me that age-friendly encourages active living by optimizing opportunities for health, participation, and security in order to enhance quality of life as people age. And we must recognize the valuable contribution that seniors make. Nobody should be questioning that at all. First, let me say the federal NDP policy, of course, is to restore the old age security eligibility to 65 from 67. But we need a national housing strategy, which would include seniors as well. I was talking to someone the other day. She said what the New Democrats should be proposing is a tax credit for any senior that signs up, say, for physical activity, for a yoga class, for Tai Chi, for pickleball, whatever it is. If there's a registration fee, you should be able to get that back because you're becoming more active, and perhaps that would lead to less of demand on the healthcare system. I think it's a great idea. It's not something we throw out during an election campaign, but it's something definitely on the radar now to take forward. It's the little things in life. You work with your municipality, you see the parking spaces out here, we're all jammed in. I know when I worked with the seniors people, the senior center, when I was on the planning commission, we talked about widening the space of parking near here for the seniors that come to the center, because some of us as we age, we like to push the door wider open when we get out of the car, and so we can get out easier, or to get in. So it's the little things like that. I fought to get the transit bus, when I was on the transit board, coming up to the door, instead of parking at the road and letting people off and having them to walk in. You know, there's a lot we can do. Every community should have a seniors advisory committee right across the province. That should be encouraged. We have to do better to feed our seniors in hospitals and long-term care homes, more local foods, better nutritious foods, and better advice on nutrition. Thank you.
And the last one is Brandon.
Okay, well, Windsor, as I said before, we are vying to become Ontario and perhaps Canada's retirement capital. There are a number of things that Windsor offers right now why this can happen. First of all, as everyone knows, we have an incredible climate down here. I think one of the best climates in Canada. We have access to the U.S. private healthcare system, and already about 10% of people make use of that. We have a quicker travel time to the Sunshine States, so places like Florida in the winter. We cut down on that tremendously if you're opting to drive. And in the city, we have really no issues with overcrowding. We have a small city atmosphere here, and yet access to big city amenities. Some of the things that we're looking to do for seniors, one of the big things is we're looking to push an affordable housing pilot project. That means that seniors can get funding to move into a home of their choice, somewhere that works for them as opposed to being forced in by some bureaucrat. As far as accessibility goes, we continue to support the AODA, which is something that's very important. In terms of healthcare, we want to move towards a system managing complex healthcare cases, as opposed to having patients struggle to manage their own healthcare. As we know, 10% of patients use approximately 60% of the healthcare resources. Thank you very much, everyone.
That moves us into the questions from the audience, part of the program. I ask that you keep your questions brief and to a point, and each candidate will have depending on the severity of the question, in my opinion, either a minute or 2 minutes, and I'll designate that after I hear the question. Are there any questions from the audience? Yes, young lady right here, and then you're next. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Amy Johnson. I'm here representing Legal Assistance of Windsor. So mine is a poverty question. In 2008, all parties in the legislature at that time agreed on a poverty reduction strategy, and it's supposed to be renewed every 5 years. So we're at the 5-year mark, which means that it is required by law to be renewed. So I am questioning each one of you, what would your poverty reduction strategy be? And I'm specifically looking for policy initiatives and measurement indicators of the poverty reduction strategy for this area and for the province.
Very good question. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to that question. And we'll mix them up a little bit. And the first one will be Jason again. You're lucky.
What? I think it all starts with the with our Jobs and Prosperity Fund, moving that forward. A targeted investment, especially in the auto manufacturing industry in Windsor, would be very important, because I think if, unfortunately, if the PC government is elected, they'll most likely turn their back on Chrysler, and if we lose that plant, poverty in this city will explode. More to the point of your question, I think a housing strategy is absolutely important. Measurables are very important as well. We have to lower the recorded amount of people that are living below the poverty line. But that comes back to growing the economy. If there are more jobs in our community, there's less poverty. It's simple economics. And moving forward, I think, especially in Windsor, but province-wide, that $2.5 billion in targeted investment that will increase employment, grow our economy, is important to reducing poverty. So yeah, that's how I would go forward. I'm definitely in favor of our housing strategy, making sure that those with low incomes are always given the ability to stay in homes and fix up, pay their rent, and even make improvements to their properties to lower utilities bills and things of that nature. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next candidate is Brandon.
Okay. Well, as I'm sure you guys know, the biggest way to reduce poverty is to get people working again. We need to have better access to jobs, more jobs available, better paying jobs in this region. And there are a number of ways we're going to do that. Of course, as I said, lowering the corporate tax rate to 8% will encourage a number of businesses to come to the region. We also want to reduce everyone's personal income taxes by 10% once the budget is balanced in 2016. That means more money in everybody's pockets, less money being paid to taxes. As far as affordable housing goes, that is an issue that has been raised. And the PC Party, we want to partner with the private sector to build more affordable housing. I know a number of concerns have been raised in the past about the quality that you tend to find in a lot of these houses. A lot of them are older, derelict, falling apart. And so we believe that we can partner sustainably with different private firms to help have more affordable housing and better quality affordable housing. And we know that some people are able to pay a little bit more in affordable housing situations. Others obviously have very little that they can afford, so we want to work with them as well to make sure that everyone has access to that. Thank you very much.
Give a little shake next time.
Percy.
Somebody said you should buy a lottery ticket. Poverty reduction strategy, I think it started with raising the minimum wage. Several years ago, the New Democrats said it should go up to 11. The Liberals said no. Now they're at 11. We've gone to 12. It's not a bidding war. We want to raise it 50 cents a year. At the same time, we would reduce small business taxes from 4.5% to 3% to help the small business tax the small business owners make up for the increased minimum wage. We've had a plan in there to put more money into the dental program for needy children. Children in low-income families need more dental work. We have more money in there for school breakfast nutrition programs. We would raise the Ontario Child Benefit Tax again back up to where it used to be. We believe in better nutrition, better food selection. We believe there should be more safe and affordable public housing. If you want to get a job, sometimes you need better education. We believe post-secondary education, the tuition should be frozen, and we shouldn't be charging interest on the Ontario portion of any student loan. We believe in better public transit. We're going to restore, a few years ago, Kathleen Wynne, when she was Transportation Minister, removed the bus replacement program. I think it was about $50 million a year for municipalities to buy new and better buses. We're going to restore it and increase it to $60 million. And we have programs out there. I mean, to get out of poverty, you need a job. We have a program, if you create a job, you get a tax credit up to $5,000 for the salary of any new job that's created. And if you need to buy a new piece of machinery to increase your jobs, say a $40,000 lathe, we'll give you a $4,000 tax credit the following year as a way of job creation.
Thank you. Adam.
So I'm glad to follow up on Percy. As a student for the last 8 years, believe me, I know what it feels like to live in poverty and debt. So definitely as in the Green Party, we're going to be pushing for a tuition freeze as well to help students. I think we need to address poverty as a comprehensive issue and as a social issue. So first of all, yes, the Green Party does support a living wage for workers. We don't see just unemployed people who are poor, we also see working poor. So people are working 1 or 2 jobs, even 3 jobs sometimes, who can't make ends meet. So we definitely need to look at raising the minimum wage in that respect. But what I've heard from small business owners is that that's going to cause a problem on their payroll. They won't be able to give as many hours, they won't be able to hire as many new staff. So what we're proposing with the Green Party platform is to reduce payroll taxes on small businesses. So they'll be permitted to hire more people, or they'll have the incentive to hire more people at least, without having to worry about paying taxes on creating jobs. So we're taking taxes off job creation. We also talked about hydro a lot today. That's a big concern. People who are choosing between food or paying their hydro bill. That's a problem. Definitely one of the ways we can lower your hydro bills is through encouraging home retrofit programs, which will also create jobs in the construction, renovation, and engineering sectors. At the Farmers Market downtown, I've seen the Pathway to Potential pilot program that piloted the Market Dollars program. Here, persons in our community were given market dollars which they could spend at the market. What I saw was a great success. These people were able to buy nutritious food. They came, some of the parents would give the dollars to their kids and say, hey, go for it, go find something you like. And suddenly you see kids trying food that they might not be trying if you serve it on their plate at home. So I want to see that program move forward. I want to support that program as much as I can as a site manager there. And also in our Green Party platform, we have a lot to say about supporting social innovation with the Social Innovation Fund and creating jobs in small businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. Yes, ma'am. The lady behind you first.
Excuse me? Excuse me. Okay, don't worry, I'm not gonna hit you with my pickleball paddle, okay? I have to go back to my game. But you know what? My opinion is, where are all the Winston Churchills when we need guidance and courage in this country? My question is, why don't we have one school system? Do none of you have the courage to stand up and say we need one system? There's only one candidate here that is speaking for that, and that is Mr. Wright. Did you not say that we would save $1 billion? If you did really say that, where did you get that figure? I'd be interested to know, because $1 billion is a lot we can do for $1 billion with everything going up in this country. I just don't understand it. I'd like to hear your comments, please.
Okay.
It's gonna be me.
Percy.
2 minutes?
Thank you. I'd like to hear where the $1 billion in savings is going to come from too, because there's still going to be the same number of students. There's still going to be the same number of teachers. There's still gonna be the same number of supervisors, and they're on a ratio of so many per student.
No, there's not.
There's not?
No. You have all these different systems now with all these superintendents and directors of education.
I didn't get to the directors. There's still the same number of students. They still need the same number of teachers. You can't double classroom sizes and expect to get any kind of education performed in the classroom.
Let's allow the candidate to respond, please.
Seriously. You may have fewer buildings, and you may save some money on fewer buildings, and you may save some money on the CEO salaries, if you will, of the directors of education, but you're still gonna have the same number of students that still need to be educated. So I'm really interested in hearing the answer to your question on where the $1 billion in savings is going to come from. Thank you.
Next candidate to respond to the question is Brandon.
Okay, well, first things first, the reason why most parties have not touched this so far is that in order to do this, you need to reopen the Constitution. You must have a referendum that gets a 2/3 majority vote in order to amalgamate the school system. Article 93 in the British North America Act guarantees certain rights for Roman Catholics within Canada. That's the reason that Quebec would join. So to do that, you know, on the one hand, you can have some cost savings. On the other hand, it would be an incredibly, incredibly divisive thing. I think still religion plays an important part in this province. We already have an established school system in place, and Catholics are now receiving full funding, equal to that of the public system. So you know, in order to do that, it would wind up incredibly divisive. If you think of, for example, if you wind up with a 49 to 51% split, what that will do to people. I mean, all you have to do is think of what happened in Quebec in 95 with the referendum, where they wound up with a similar number, and you had people arguing in the streets. It tore communities apart. So perhaps one day it will happen, but as of right now, I think it's still far too divisive of an issue. And if you'd like to talk more about our education policy, I'd be happy to talk about it more after, or if someone else wants to ask another question about that specifically. Thank you.
Jason?
I just want to address the two school board things. Brandon is somewhat right in the fact that if there would require a constitutional discussion. There are viewpoints from lawyers and et cetera that debate that. It is a minority right issue. It's minority language right in Quebec, and it's a minority religious issue in Ontario. As far as Percy kind of touched on it, with regards to the shrinking the system, there would be less buildings, and I've seen just in the past week the outcry of moving students from school to school based on closures, and I'm not sure that's an issue we want to exploit in our community. It would definitely anger quite a few people, as this issue has in the last week. I know a couple of teachers at St. Mary Grady itself. It's not something moving forward that I believe the Liberal Party would be in favor of, because of the minority rights issues that it touches on. Saving $1 billion is great in theory if you can accomplish it, but if it affects the quality of education that a lot of these students get because they want to be in a Catholic school, I think that kind of ruins their education going forward. So that's my view on that. Thank you.
Yep. The last candidate to respond to it is Adam.
I guess it's serendipitous that I get the closing remarks on this question. Certainly, I think I do need to do a better job of addressing this issue in our community. There is a lot of interest for it on both sides, from both school boards. So I'll definitely make a point of bringing up those statistics. This study was done independently of the Green Party. This isn't my idea. This isn't our party's idea. This is something that's been looked at by independent organizations, and I promise you that next time I talk about this, I'll have the specific figures in front of me. But let's just talk about the concepts. We've already heard some misguided conceptions about this issue. So first of all, this is an issue of fairness, human rights, and fiscal responsibility. So we can't say that we want to protect one minority's rights without saying that we're infringing on other groups. What we're looking to do is to keep schools open, not close schools. This policy right now is addressing the fact that we're looking at closing 125 to 175 schools across this province right now. So those schools are slated for closure. Those aren't the building savings that we're talking about. We're talking about duplicate administration, we're talking about bus transportation costs, and saving, I'll be honest, there will be some administrative positions that may be cut, but we're actually looking to save frontline workers, the teachers' jobs. No teaching job will be under threat with this plan. We also want to reinvest, actually the numbers are 1.2 billion to 1.6 billion. I'm not trying to exaggerate, so I'm keeping it at 1 billion. But we're looking at reinvesting that money into special needs programs in this province. Right now, principals are sending kids home, back to their families, saying, we don't have a program to treat your child because he has or she has a special, is a special case. So we want to reinvest in teaching aides in classrooms, protect teaching jobs, frontline workers, and definitely this is just an idea. This is what the Green Party's for, bringing these ideas forward, bringing them into the discussion, and unfortunately I'm out of time, but let's talk about this issue more. Thank you.
Just a reminder, everyone, there's cookies, coffee, and we'll have an opportunity at the end of this to have a meet and greet. You'll be able to talk to the candidates on one-on-one. Yes, sir, you have a question.
Ontario voters are losing confidence in elected officials because of issues of honesty, integrity, and accountability. How will your parties address these issues so that we can have more confidence in voting for them?
Excellent question. Let's give each candidate 2 minutes to respond to that. Brandon.
Alright, well, there's one thing I've learned is that in the last decade of McGuinty, Wynne, and later Wynne-Horvath coalition has shown us, especially the Liberals, are not to be trusted. We've heard time and again the Liberals say one thing and then do another. The classic line in political science is that the Liberals run elections from the left and then govern from the right. McGuinty said that he wouldn't raise taxes. What was the first thing he did? Imposed a healthcare premium, the largest tax increase in Ontario history. Liberal government right now is involved, I was going to say 2 major scandals, but it's now 3 major scandals. The Orange air ambulances, the $1.1 billion on the gas plants, and now the new Mars office building, which someone just described to me who was relatively close to it in Toronto. He called it the Taj Mahal of office spaces for bureaucracy. One thing is, the PC party, we've been very open and honest about what our policies have been going forward from day one. It took the NDP and Liberals a couple weeks to get their platform even out there to the public. We've said from day one, we have our Million Jobs plan, we put it out, we've been talking about it nonstop. It's been out in the open for anyone to look at if they want to know more about the plan. We have nothing to hide behind. We know that we have difficult decisions to be made with regards to some cutting and reducing. But we've also been honest about that. We've spoken openly about these issues, so people know all of the bold ideas we're putting forward, all of the plans we have to strengthen the economy, and some of the less popular ideas that we have to do to push that agenda forward. Thank you.
Good. Jason.
It's a good question. It's something that, especially in the last 5 years, as somebody that's a little younger, and I've seen the declining voter turnout, that it's very discouraging. We're looking at a time when people just don't trust government, and that's true from the provincial level to the federal level, and even to a certain extent at the municipal level. Our party has introduced the Accountability Act, which has introduced penalties for deletion of emails and the like, of destroying records. It has also laid out a way in which members of provincial parliament would disclose all of their finances with regards to expenses. So moving forward, that's our plan. Again, with the PCs taking a shot at the gas plant, I find it ironic because during the last election campaign, Tim Hudak vowed to cancel those gas plants, and conceded the cost exceeded $1 billion. So when they talk about $1 billion corruption scandal, it isn't. It's something that they promised to do as well. The NDP had conceded that they would do the same. They would cancel the Mississauga plant. They may not have known the cost, but Mr. Hudak did. So going forward, I do believe we have to restore the trust in government. I think a meeting like this is a perfect example. I think we need to spend more time with the voters and less time at Queen's Park, to be totally honest. It's something that we need to have these conversations. We need to go knock on doors outside of a writ period and have conversations like this so that we can improve our government from the people as opposed to doing it from Toronto. Because even with the Accountability Act, you pass that, nobody has a solution from Queen's Park, but we can solve the problem from conversations like these. So I thank you for the question. Something happens.
Honesty, integrity, good public policy, and politics. That's the party slogan for the Green Party of Ontario right now. Is it ironic that we don't get invited to all the debates? I think so. I'll let you make up your own mind on that. We've seen what the Conservative government has done at the federal level. We've seen what the Liberals are doing at the provincial level. People are calling for change. Every conversation I have with people, they have something negative to say about every party up there. Green Party hasn't had a chance to make any mistakes. Green Party hasn't had a chance to make those daring moves. Give us a chance to prove you to support your ideas.
A chance to make mistakes.
Good comic relief at this point isn't too bad, right? So we've got 107 candidates running across the province, chomping at the bit to give us a chance to show leadership, put somebody in provincial parliament so we can represent your views. At the federal level, we've seen Elizabeth May as the first Green Party MP elected in our country. She's been voted the hardest working MP. She's made a big difference in her riding. People are proud to support her and the party. Let's see some of that in Ontario. Let's see some of this change that people are calling for. Give me a chance to represent you. Vote your conscience in this election. Honesty, integrity, and good public policy in politics. Thank you.
Percy.
I don't think there was anyone left. Thank you. That's a great question. You know, even at the municipal level, if you think of Rob Ford, think of Joe Fontana down in London, no party is free of I mean, Prime Minister Harper said he'd never appoint a senator. He'd only have elected senators. Then he turns around when he thought he was in crisis and he appointed Mike Duffy, Pamela Wallen, Patrick Brazo, and look what that did to him. You know, scandal, scandal, scandal. Politicians all over are tainted by that. I go to the door a lot. You can see, despite wearing a 60 sunblock, it's not really working. And what I get at the door from some people is they don't trust anybody anymore. They see us in question period, and it's like a circus. We're fighting amongst ourselves, going back and forth. But question period does bring up some points. In the scandal after scandal after scandal that the Liberals have been involved with in the past 10 years, with all due respect, the e-health scandal, where their friends get an untendered contract for $1 billion and have yet to deliver us health records that we can use. Then the Orange Air Ambulance scandal, making $1.5 billion and the ambulances are crashing. And then the scandal on the gas plants. And it wasn't so much that all the parties said they would have canceled them. The Liberals allowed them to be cited there in the first place by stripping away a community's right to stop it. But then there was the cover-up, the deletion of the emails, the deletion of the hard drives, the lies. I mean, it just goes on and on. And I think Andrea Horvath said it best last night when she said, it's the same old team at Queen's Park. They might have a different leader in now, but it's the same old team, same corrupt Liberal government. And I don't blame you at all, because we're all paying the price for the lies and distortions and the corruption. It's got to run somewhere.
Thank you. For us to be done by 12:30, the next question, so I'll ask each of the candidates 1 minute to respond. The gentleman at the back first, and then you, sir.
Over the last 30 years, I've become disillusioned with every one of your parties. I don't trust or believe that you can do anything that you say you can do. I'm going to vote for one of you four gentlemen based on what you tell me now. Why are you the best candidate for Windsor Tecumseh to go to Queen's Park? Not your party, but you.
Excellent question. Adam. 1 minute, sir.
I want to tell you that I believe in my party's platform, but you don't want to hear about the party. So I want to say, as my personal views, is that I've been disillusioned and disenchanted by the political process. I've been disappointed in the past. I've overcome that apathy, and I've realized what I heard Mike Schreiner, our party leader, say: if we don't vote for the future we want, we will never have that future. And when I see young people at my age voting for the first time in their lives simply because I'm participating in politics, that's inspiring to me. And I want to take it further. I want to make it to Queen's Park, and I want to say to all the young people out there and everybody else, if you're willing to fight for your future, take a stand. And I'm definitely one of those people right now, and maybe we'll see a lot more of them in the years to come.
Thank you. Percy.
Well, thank you. I'd say vote for me because of my track record. In the last year I've been there, I've stood up for this community and spoken very loudly. Start with the girders, where they knew about the girders and still put them in the ground despite the ministry saying, don't put them there. They're not, we don't know how long they're going to last because they haven't been built right. Thoracic cancer surgery. Again, I stood behind the community and fought for that. I have a proven track record at Queen's Park. My 7 years on City Council when your taxes did not go up, and I was in favor of every one of those options. My 30 years with integrity at the CBC, where I treated people with fairness and integrity. And I think people still remember those years. So you may not like the party that I represent. I just joined the party a year ago. I was always an independent, never thought I'd ever join a party until they closed the Windsor Raceway, put 2,000 people out of work by a liberal plan that didn't make sense then. It still doesn't make sense now, and they're not going to bring back 2,000 local jobs. I believe in local jobs. I believe in standing up for local jobs, local employment, and local future, a strong local future, because I believe we have the best area in the province, and we should fight to keep it that way.
Thank you. Brandon.
Well, I believe that I'm the best choice because, first of all, I'm the youngest member here standing up today, but I don't want any of you to ever confuse a lack of experience with the inability to learn or the lack of compassion. If there's one thing I've learned from this election and one thing I've gained, first of all, it's a little bit of self-confidence going out and talking with people, meeting with people, shaking hands, and getting to hear their stories. If there's one thing I have a lot of, it's compassion for others. You know, for all of Rob Ford's problems he has as a mayor, the one thing I love is he says, here's my number, call me, I want to hear your concerns. And I love that. I tell people at the door, here's my contact information, email me, tell me what your concerns are, I want to bring them forward. I want to fight for everybody in this community up in Toronto. Toronto seems like a world away. I don't think it needs to be. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And our last candidate. There it is. Yes. Jason.
That's what it feels like to go last.
It's been a while. I was born and raised in Windsor. I have a unique passion for this area. My father was an auto worker. I saw how hard he worked. My mother was a nurse, and I saw her actions in the community. But my father spent a lot of time volunteering with Riverside Minor Baseball and Riverside Minor Hockey. I spent my entire childhood in an arena or on a ball diamond. I've been telling people that story as I go around because it's part of what's made me who I am, and I have a passion for this area. The people from Windsor are the hardest working people in the province. They're some of the most passionate. Some of them may leave, but most of them always come back, and that's what I want to make sure they have a job here in Windsor, that they don't have to go away. Because growing up, or moving up in Windsor Tecumseh shouldn't mean moving out of Windsor Tecumseh. So those are the things that's what I'm passionate about, keeping jobs in the city and keeping our community together. Thank you.
have a few more minutes. Yes, sir, you have a question.
Electricity. My bill's gone through the roof. How is your party going to lower electricity costs and don't offer me a rebate? Don't try and buy me with my own tax dollars. I don't want a rebate. I want the bills to come down, the costs to come down. How are you going to do it?
Thank you. Excellent question. Each candidate will have 1 minute